Good morning, First Universalist. Good morning. It's great to see you all here. My name is Jen Crow. I use she and her pronouns, and it is a pleasure to serve as your senior minister here. And you know what? I'm going to let you in on a couple of secrets this morning. Today is a day that has not gone as planned. That happens often, but it happened in a lot of ways today, and that is just fine because we as a community hold it together. So, way number one, Dr. Glenn Thomas is ill this morning. Boo! So we're sending him our healing wishes. It also means we are creative and self-sustaining on music this morning, so we're going to do great. So thank you to Elena, who's around, and you'll hear her music later. Thank you to Ashley, who's going to jump in too. Thanks to all of us who are going to make it happen this morning with music. Also, I was really excited to host our guest preacher, Dr. Ortega, well this morning, and I was like, do you know what's great about our pulpit? It can actually rise and get lower. It's built that way, so you can use it for the height you want. So I undid the knobs and went to raise it up, and then I noticed there was a problem, and it was this, that it no longer stays in place. So we're at the tipping point over here with a lot of just things up in the air today. So we're pulling this together, friends. So this is how we do it. It is an absolute joy to get to lead worship today with Reverend Ashley, with Elena, with Dr. Ortega, with Em as our worship associate, and big gratitude as always to Olu and John who keep the tech working and help us be connected. Grateful for everybody who's joining us online. Grateful for all the greeters and ushers, all the hands and hearts, the artists that have tended this space to make it ready for us today. And I want to say a thank you today to somebody that you may not even know exists. I want to say a thank you to Rachel Rott. I think we'll have a picture of her because she's never here, so you don't get to even see what she looks like, right? But Rachel is our communications assistant. She actually lives in California and works for us at First Universalist. She does tremendous work for us. So if you get the newsletter, that's her work. You see the updates on social media, updates to our website, emails, all these things, slides on Sunday mornings and all the visuals. That's Rachel. And I wanted to just lift her up today because you know what I think she's here somewhere in the building. So, oh, there she is. Yeah. So this is Rachel's first time actually in person at First Universalist. She came in especially this weekend to be here for Dr. Ortega's visit with us. So I'm so glad you're here and that we actually get to meet you. And so good. So, and I want to tell you something too about why it is we start our Sunday mornings with thank yous. So you might have noticed that every time I'm up here, I say welcome and then I start with thank yous. And this is not just a throwaway way to do announcements or some way to lift up some people and not others. This is actually a way that we are shaping our community together, shaping the culture, shaping our spiritual practices together. And I want to tell you where this came from. Now, a long time ago, when I first came to a Unitarian Universalist congregation, one of the things I was seeking was the kind of inner peace that I saw folks who were involved in a faith community had, that they could kind of go through the ups and downs of life with some sense of equilibrium and balance, and I really, really wanted that. And I didn't know what a spiritual practice might be able to look like for me within Unitarian Universalism. And I talked with a new friend at the congregation where I went, and I told them I was trying to work with prayer and meditation, but I didn't know what that meant now, and that I had so many arguments about what God was or wasn't, or if God even existed, or what was God all-powerful and all-knowing. Anyway, I could argue up and down the wall on what God might or might not be. And my new friend said, why don't you just cut out that part of the prayer? You don't have to address a prayer to anybody or anything. Why not just start with thank you? And so thank yous became the start of all of my prayer and meditation time. So for years, it was memorizing poetry that it did it for me. And I would start each morning with E. E. Cummings, and I thank you, God, for most this amazing day. And that became the thing on repeat in my heart and in my mind. And over the last few years, the prayer that goes through my head before I even get out of bed each morning is, thank you for this day and all that is in it, which is a bit of a challenge for myself. But it really has shaped me, this way of being and this practice. So this has been kind of a relentless practice for me over the years, where I start each day with thank yous and with gratitude. And what I've noticed about how it shapes me is that when I encounter people or situations, I'm looking first for what's good and what's right, instead of what's wrong or what I disagree with. When I see a situation in front of me, I'm much more likely to see possibilities instead of problems. And this is all out of starting with thank you. I can do it in the morning, I can do it in every interaction. So I offer that up as a possible practice for us, and also a little window in on why we start with thank yous in our services on Sunday mornings. So welcome to this community of practice, this community where we practice building beloved community together. Welcome to this place where we lean into a universalist understanding of faith that names each and every person and each and every being as whole and holy and worthy, welcome and wanted. Where we strive to live into a love that is so big that it cannot help but transform us as individuals and as a community. A love, as Dr. Mark Hicks says, that is so big that it will not let us go, will not let us down, and will not let us off the hook. This is the kind of love we are living into here. We practice together. One of the other ways we practice is with our breath, something that is with us at all times, everywhere we go. And so I invite you into this practice of settling our bodies and spirits by breathing on purpose. The invitation is for 3 intentional breaths, perhaps a deeper breath in and a slower breath out. Let's try it together. From this place of calm and connection, we say together the words for lighting our chalice, the words that help us remember and keep our promises in this community. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning. So if there's any young person in the audience here in attendance today, young in age or young at heart, I'm going to invite you to please come forward and join me here. Yes, come along, don't be shy. Because I'm gonna need your help. All right, I'm gonna need your help for a moment. Yes, come along. I know you can be here, you're gonna help me. I know it's so uncomfortable. I know. It can be a little bit embarrassing at times, and we can be a little shy. Well, actually, I'm not pretty shy. Yeah. Well, thank you. Good morning. So today, I'm going to be talking to all of us about stories and the important things of stories. And I brought something that has helped me over the years to tell my own stories, right? So one of the things that I like for you to do is to just, you can open this up and take a quick look and pass it around quickly so that everybody can see exactly what is in there, right? And just keep it a secret for now. Something very special, at least to me. Yeah. I'm going to assume some of you have seen some of that before. Have you? Maybe? No? I know. They're pretty cool. Thank you, Milo. I'm going to pass it on. So here, I can take a quick look. I know. So this, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do with this in a moment, right? And I'm going to need someone to help me. But one of the things that I love to do is I love to tell stories, right? Stories that make me happy, stories that at times can make us a little bit sad, right, but are important for us to share. Because stories is a way in which we make meaning, right, of our life, or the things that is important to us, right, the memories. And I'm also going to leave you into a secret. One of the things that we do in Time of All Ages when we tell stories to the young folks is because we want to prep, right, the older folks there, right, to listen about the things that we're going to be talking about later on today. All right. So here, would you mind doing me a favor? I'm going to ask you to please just spill them around the floor. Damisha, just spill them, right? And I ask just the rest of you to go in and grab a few. So for those of you who cannot see it, they are, just go ahead and move it, grab a couple, right? Grab a couple, look at them. It is okay. Go for it, grab them, grab a few, right? Grab a few, yeah. So what we have here is a die, right, or a cube, and no, we're not going to be gambling, right? Just a little die that has figures, right? Has figures, have images, right, in that die. Right. And a wild guess, like what can we do with this? What can you imagine we can do with something like this? Right. When you put them together, right, what comes to mind? Those of you who have multiple ones, right, you get an image of what? That looks like ramen. That looks like what? How do you think that is? A sunset? Yeah. Maybe a balloon or a bag? Right. What comes to mind? If you pull them all those together in a line, can you tell a story? Yeah. You think so? Probably. Probably. What would you say? I don't know. You don't know? So you got someone yelling pretty loud, and it looks like to what? To a bag? Yeah. Why would you yell to a bag? You probably have something inside the bag. Yeah. Yeah? And you're going somewhere. Oh, that looks like a gate. Right, so you're calling out your bag, there's something in the bag that you're bringing along to your trip, and then you're going to do what in your trip?
I don't know what that is.
Let's find another one. How about that?
And then you look for something.
Yeah, you look for something. You're going to go sightseeing, and then you end up with some food. Yeah. Yeah, actually, that's how I travel. Yeah, my kids like to travel just looking for food. Wherever they go. Right. They make their plans of where we're going to go depending on the food that they can eat. Right. So you have some cubes, and you can put the cubes together, and you can tell a story, right, about something that is happening. And the wonderful thing about dice like that is that you can roll the die all over again, and you can start all over again and tell a new story with the same thing that you have in your hands. And I find that is magnificent and fascinating. And someone like me that travels a lot and sometimes spend a lot of time alone, those dice just keep me good companionship, right? Because I tell stories about my day, stories about what I want to experience or imagination. But there's something else that I want you to keep in mind, right? As you are living life, you have wonderful stories and adventures, right? It could be something that happened at school that make you really happy. It could be something that happened in a congregation, right? It could be a walk in the park and you saw something beautiful that captured your imagination. All those experiences are a little die, a little building block that you will use in your life to tell a larger story of who you are. But more importantly, you can also use your imagination and think of who you may want to become. Right? So something that happens to you does not necessarily dictate who you may become. Right? You can still change, you can transform, and all it will take for you to do with all those life stories and experiences will be what? Just roll the die again. Pick them all up again, organizing them in a new fashion, and you can tell a new story, right, of who you are. Okay, well, thank you for joining me. But I want to tell you there's a story like that I'm going to be telling to the rest of us here today. And it's the story about universalism, right? The story of a message of love and universalism, that it is a welcome. It is to say you are welcome in this space to come together, to roll the die of your life again, give us all a chance and become someone new, to be transformed and changed, so that in doing so, we can change our collective story, okay? And remember, each one of you are one of those dices that tell the story of this community, right? So you are part of it. So when we, as a community, roll the die on who we are, reorganize and tell our story. It is all of ours to tell. Okay. All right, well, thank you for joining me. And if I may ask you to please put the die back in the bag, I would really, really appreciate it. And those are called story cubes, right? They come in different sets, all kinds of colors and fun things to do. But I love my story cubes to tell stories. Yeah, always the RE person, I tell you.
Thanks so much for introducing us to your story cubes and the stories that we can write out of the random sometimes events and the sometimes predictable events in our lives. Now's the time when we move into different spaces in our continued spiritual growth together. So this is the time when our children and young folks will be heading on their way to their religious education classes in just a moment, and adults will be staying in here. And we do this on purpose, right? With the light of the chalice, moving with our kids on their way to their classes. So kids, I invite you to follow the lantern and to follow the flags. So we have kindergarten and first graders are one flag, second and third graders is another, fourth and fifth is another, and I invite you on your way to your spaces that are made just for you. In just a moment, we'll move into a time of meditation and prayer together, but we're going to start with thank you and welcome first. This morning, as we settle into this space, like I said, I begin again with gratitude. Gratitude to be welcoming Dr. Elias Ortega into our pulpit and into our community. Dr. Ortega is one of the people who is reshaping what it means to lead in the spirit of universalism. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He is a knitter. He is a drummer. He is a thinker who grew up in Puerto Rico and New Jersey, someone who carries the memory of colonization and the brilliance of diaspora into classrooms and pulpits and boardrooms. Now president of Meadville Lombard Theological School, which is one of the schools that educates many of our Unitarian Universalist ministers, including myself. He is someone who is working to make theological education serve the living, not just the legacy. His scholarship spans religious ethics, critical race theory, and Latinx and Africana studies. He was one of the folks helping to lead the Unitarian Universalist Association's Commission on Institutional Change, shaping the report, Widening the Circle of Concern, which is a groundbreaking call to dismantle white supremacy within our faith. He is a co-founder of the Freedom School at Drew University, training organizers in nonviolent direct action. He has partnered with organizations who are advocating for migrant justice, for juvenile justice, for radical mental health. And he does all this while mentoring students with tenderness and humor and fierce intellectual generosity. Dr. Ortega, we're so glad you're with us today, and we thank you for your leadership here and within Unitarian Universalism.
Good morning. It is a pleasure to be here, and thank you, Reverend Jen, for the invitation, and thank you for all of you for taking the time and making the space to join us today. What I would love to do is to invite us to a few moments of silent meditation, right? And do with me, let's say, a little bit of a dreaming exercise, if you may. If you feel comfortable doing this, because I know it can be a moment of vulnerability that a stranger like me may ask you to close your eyes and take a few breaths. But if you feel comfortable doing so, I hope that you do that with me. And if not, find a comfortable way to settle your body, settle into your breathing. That as we know, in the time and seasons that we have lived, breathing together is a sign of vulnerability and trust in community. So as you are doing so, imagine for a moment that you are standing on a bridge. It's a wooden bridge. This is a bridge that stretches from the distant past to an unforeseeable future. And you are somewhere in the middle of it. Look around you and look beneath your feet or the place in which you may be sitting. You're going to be noticing the planks that are underneath you. Imagine that each one of those planks tell a story. It is a story so far not always told by you, but by ancestors, those who came before you, before me, before many others. Each one of those planks will tell a story, a recounting of events, of where we have been. Each one of those planks tell a story of the actions, the acts, the wisdom, the lessons, the dreams of others. Each one of those planks is unique. And as you're looking around, you realize that you have traveled to the point in which you are in that bridge because of the labor of others, their wisdom that they choose to share with you, the lessons that they choose to impart and that you have received, sometimes willingly, but often not. Each of those stories is unique. They may speak of pain, they may speak of challenges, but they also speak of joy and hope. Notice the firmness underneath you that such stories have provided, and in so doing, extend your gaze forward. The future may be unknown, and it's not clear the ways in which the bridge will continue. But hold into one hope, that you, your life story, those of others next to you, can lay the way forward. Your own life, your own story will be a plank in which others will someday rest and look into their own future. You will be remembered by the wisdom that you share, the joy, the sorrowful stories that you also ask others to hold alongside with you. And then in such hope, choose to take a movement forward.
Past to present to future. We are connected and interconnected by our breath, by our lives, by our intentional creation of legacy. We are connected in this community, past to present to future, across lives, across generations, across lands, across history. In this place of deep interconnection, we trust that together we can hold it all. And so we make time for prayer this morning, for meditation, for holding all that is part of our lives together. The turning of the cycle of life happens for each of us, for people, for planets, for bodies, for water, for countries, for communities. As we move into this time of prayer and meditation together, each of us is invited, if you'd like, to speak out loud or hold silently. The grief or the gratitude, the worry or the celebration you are bringing to this time and space. We'll listen for each other, and after each person has shared, we'll respond with "You are not alone, we're holding it together." The circle is open. Gratitude for your grandson who was born this morning. You are not alone. We are holding it together. That integrity might be reestablished in our houses of power. You are not alone. We are holding it together.
For the Reverend Kelly Clements from the people of Ames, Iowa, who I had the privilege of preaching the installation sermon yesterday for. This combination was so present, and she loves you so deeply, and we are so blessed by her history.
Yes. For the Reverend Kelly Clement, who heard her call to ministry as a member of this congregation, celebrating her installation as the settled minister at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Ames, Iowa yesterday. You are not alone. We are holding it together. We celebrate too with all of the graduates of the United Theological Seminary of the Twin Cities, and especially with church members Mark Caswell and Malia Hausnecht and their families, and also with Nico Van Ostrand, who is graduating and will be serving as our ministerial intern here beginning this fall. You are not alone. We are holding it together.
I would like to thank the Internal Revenue Service for having such rules that allow me to have a generous refund.
Gratitude for a generous refund from the IRS and for being able to pay off some debt with it. You are not alone. We are holding it together.
See the mousetrap.
Apparently the mousetrap is worth seeing. You are not alone. We are holding it together. I am praying, and I know you are too, for all those who are being kidnapped without due process and sent away from their families. And health care. Yes. You are not alone. We are holding it together.
I learned last week that my school friend of over 70 years died of April 11th.
For your school friend of over 70 years who died earlier this month. You are not alone. We are holding it together.
May we have fierce and courageous love and actions, and may that fierce and courageous love hold all of us, and especially right now, the Reverend.
Fierce and courageous love, holding us all now, and especially holding Reverend Arif. You are not alone. We are holding it together. For all the prayers we're holding in our hearts that maybe haven't found their way to words yet, together we pray that the grip of addiction might be loosened, that the weight of oppression might be lightened, that grief might be shared, that joy might break through, and that love might make every suffering bearable for us all. May it be so. Amen. And let us sing together.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the
Thank you, Reverend Ashley. Good morning, beloveds. My name is also Reverend Ashley. I use she, her pronouns. And now is the time when we make that practice, that thing we say each week, you are not alone, we are holding it together. We make it material. We make it an offering. I wanted to let you know that we are supporting another family. We are supporting another family of rainbow refugees, as we are now being taught to call them. This family is expecting a baby in the next month, and we have the honor of hosting them in an apartment nearby. And we have promised them our support in the form of rent, in the form of supporting a new life coming into the world. And we have done that with the great faith that you will make that promise real, that you will give boldly with your full hearts and whatever you feel called to give to our community offering plate this weekend. This is a story we have known for a long time. We tell it every year at the Christmas pageant, right? We're making room in the inn for a trans family that has migrated here, where the sacred is being born. Join us to make that possible and give boldly. We invite you also to consider your pledge. 'Tis the pledge season. For those of you who have done that already, we say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So many thank yous. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are at about 1,150,000. That is something worth applauding. Yes. We are just about 150,000 short of where we need to be able to staff all of the ministries we are trying to do, like offer housing and sanctuary and resistance. So if you have not yet pledged, please do so. Find what your gladness is and know that we are trying to meet that need together. If you have already pledged, I encourage you to consider what we are now calling a protest or protection pledge and increase that giving another 15%. And that will allow us to close the gap and keep these ministries growing and keep our vision alive. Keep moving towards the love at the center that the world is trying to deny. Let us give boldly. Oh, and I almost forgot a very important announcement. Next week, May the 4th be with us as we, the people, celebrate in music and joy. Our concert is coming up, hosted by the stewardship team. You may have heard music coming into the sanctuary. You will hear recorded music as you leave the sanctuary from our 7 stunning musicians who are going to be performing with so much heart and love. Please get your tickets, and we will see you there to celebrate. Now, let us liberate our resources and receive our morning offering.
She traveled alone through slave-holding states, risking arrest or worse, to speak against human bondage and for Black education. Born in 1825, Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, a poet who published her first book at 20, a teacher at one of the nation's first Black schools, and an abolitionist who sheltered fugitives on the Underground Railroad. She spent her life building freedom plank by plank. A member of both Mother Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church and the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia, where her funeral was held in 1911. She lived long enough to see the promises of emancipation buckle under lynching, Jim Crow, and betrayal. And still, she wrote poems and songs to arm the people with hope, fierce enough to outlive a broken world. Songs for the People is one of them. Let me make songs for the people, songs for the old and young, songs to stir like a battle cry wherever they are sung, not for the clashing of sabers, for carnage nor for strife, but songs to thrill the hearts of men with more abundant life. Let me make songs for the weary, amid life's fever and fret, till hearts shall relax their tension and careworn brows forget. Let me sing for little children before their footsteps stray, sweet anthems of love and duty to float over life's highway. I would sing for the poor and aged when shadows dim their sight, of the bright and restful mansions where there shall be no night. Our world, so worn and weary, needs music pure and strong to hush the jangle and discords of sorrow, pain, and wrong. Music to soothe all its sorrows, till war and crime shall cease, and the hearts of men grow tender, girdle the world with peace.
And my friends, that is the message of Universalism. It is a music that can soothe all sorrows until our hearts grow tender. And we can girdle the world with peace. Yes. Yes, indeed. Earlier today, a few moments ago, someone tongue-in-cheek, I told you that, share with you, that our lives sometimes are like those story cubes. They have little facets and parts of little images and story that we can recombine and cast again to tell a story of who we are and who we have been, but also to tell a new story, a story of who we may still become and to change the world. But I think at this moment I need to then tell you a little bit of my own story, some of the facets of the story that have made me who I am, and parts of the reason why I am here this morning. And part of this story have shaped and influenced my own ethical directions in the world. They have also influenced and shaped my shape and the way in which I do the things that I do as a Unitarian Universalist leader of color. So my journey started in a religious home far, far away from Unitarian Universalism. I was born in the bosom of the Pentecostal church. Because of that reason, I can tell you that my story is a story of both inclusion and also rejection. Because you see, my mother was a tithing member of the church and deeply involved in the community, but that was not so for my father. My father was not a Christian, not a church member, and prone to the bottle as a way to numb his pain. So when baby Elias was born and came the time to be dedicated to the church, the religious leadership of the church say, no, we cannot dedicate baby Elias, especially not in a Sunday morning, because he is not born in a Christian home. For my mother, that was deeply painful as well as also for some of her friends, but they insisted. They insisted that baby Elias will be dedicated in his church, and so in a Tuesday night, not on a Sunday morning, in a small gathering, baby Elias and a few friends of my mother gathered for my dedication. That was the last time that my mother attended that church. She left that particular congregation with some of her friends and left to Ebenezer Pentecostal Church in Montclair, New Jersey. And you see, those of you who are familiar with the Hebrew meaning of Ebenezer may understand why that became an important place for my mother and myself, even without knowing it so then. Because Ebenezer means stone of help. And after that initial rejection, Ebenezer Church opened their arms to welcome Hermana Eulalia and baby Elias, and it was our home church for many years until my parents moved to Puerto Rico. It was in that church in Ebenezer that I learned many things that have helped me and served me well in my life. I remember with clarity when the pastor would call and gather all the children to give us a blessing. And this is the blessing that he gave us almost every Sunday, and a blessing that I'm sure may be familiar to some of you as it comes from the Hebrew Scriptures. May the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. That blessing has resonated with me over the years. Even if I have left Christianity in particular ways behind, and even though I have not, I'm clearly not Pentecostal anymore, but Universalist, I still remember the power of that blessing. And I still remember the curiosity that it brought on me, and the thing that I needed to understand of this blessing, why face is mentioned twice. In other words, why face and countenance is mentioned twice in the blessing. Why the redundancy? And I have realized that it's not redundant, it is different. It is different. You see, we can turn our face towards someone and we can recognize and see who they are, but that does not make us move in any particular direction. But when we turn our countenance into someone, it means that we are turning with full attention and presence. When we turn our countenance towards someone, it means that we feel the ethical demands of being responsive to their needs, be responsive to their claims and their hurt. When the Lord turned the countenance upon us, it's to give us peace. And I have internalized that in my life to understand that we may turn our face towards someone. That does not mean that we recognize. We may be gracious, but we may not recognize them. But when we are lifted up by someone and someone turns their countenance towards us, peace is possible. The peace that mind our pain, the peace that weave us together in new ways. I have kept that blessing with me, and I hope that in some ways, however you understand the Lord to mean, and however to understand peace, that you also make it your own. My journey continues over the years when I have left religious homes behind and decided to be a scholar of religion. During my time, as I was preparing for higher education, I thought to myself that I will only reflect about religious matters from a scholarly perspective and not integrate it. So I became a sociologist of religion, interested in understanding what people do with the things they say they believe, but not necessarily believing. And at the time, as I was preparing and finishing my own writing, I thought to myself, there will only be one theological school that I will be open to teach at that point, and that was Drew Theological School in Madison, New Jersey. I have friends there and I have mentors there, so I thought that would be a space. So as I was interviewing and applying for different jobs and thinking possibilities of moving myself and my family, imagine what happened. Yes, Drew University was the place that made me the offer that I could not refuse, and I became a member of their faculty. And lo and behold, I joined the faculty of Drew Theological School thinking exactly what I shared earlier, that I would be a sociologist of religion, thinking what people do with religion, but not necessarily partaking in the work. But the Word had others assigned to me. And in fact, that was something else that I learned in my Pentecostal church, that the Spirit of the Divine moved in mysterious ways, opening new pathways, transforming things, touching you in new ways and changing you. You may not need to understand how, but it may happen. So it was there in a place that I thought I was only going to be an academic and only think about religion from a secular perspective that I learned to be a theological educator, that I learned to embrace the challenge to have not only the best thoughts about religious matters and practices, but also help and accompany those preparing to lead in religious communities. And my transformation happened through a phone call of one of my students. And this is a story that I can share with their permission. One night, as I was still in my ways of thinking that I was just a scholar of religion, one of my advisees called me. The call was to inform me that they were taking leave of absence to tend to the health. They have cancer, and they were hoping that I could pray for them. You see, at that moment in my life, prayer was not important for me. I was not praying much, and particularly not praying for others. And I didn't thought it was either my place as a faculty member to pray for one of my students. But I remember what I learned at church. And in fact, one of my thoughts was, what would my mother say if she find out that I say no to a prayer? So maybe a little bit out of that shame, I decided that maybe for that particular moment I can pause and say a prayer. And I went back through my own stories and I put a prayer together. And as I'm praying with my student over the phone, I start hearing, amen, may it be so. Amen, thank you, Jesus. And I realized that it was not me and my student in that moment, but my student had placed her phone in speakerphone and her family was listening to the prayer. And I thought to myself, what would have happened if I said no? What would have been my witness in that moment? To say no to a prayer of someone in need. I'm glad that I left my discomforts behind, and I'm glad that I dig back in my own toolkit of religious language and found the words to share in that moment. That was a turning point for me. And in fact, the next day I'm walking with a colleague, Heather Marie Elkins, who was a liturgist at the institution, now retired, and I was sharing this story and asked the question, I don't always have the language to pray for folks. I'm a little bit rusted out in that sphere. What can I do? And Heather just looked at me and smiled and said, you can always recite a poem. You can always recite a poem. Because poem and poetry has the language of prayer. Those might be the prayers that we pray upon one another when we don't have the words to say. And of course, she knew that I love poetry. And she knew that I oftentimes carry with me a little notebook with some of my favorite poems. So I always have a prayer book in hand. That was a moment, those two moments where pivotal for me to shift my own understanding of who I was, not only as a scholar, but also as a person who needed to integrate my academic work with my own religious life and spiritual life and tend to it anew. And from that Pentecostal upbringing and that work in the academy, I can turn around and I found a new way, a new journey among Universalists, among our communities. And it is there that I learned the hope that I'm always reminded every time I see our chalice being lit, that light and that warmth make out of strangers a family. And that is a hope that continues to inspire me and strengthen me in my journey. So where are we today in this current moment? We are living to quite peculiar time, ain't we? In fact, if we are more truthful about our current moment, we need to consider the great risks that our democracy is facing. We need to consider the perils that are endangering our earth, and therefore, how do we live? How do we breathe? How do we eat? We need to also be mindful of the political shifts that are happening globally, that are threatening the lives of many. In fact, we need to declare that we are living through unprecedented times. In our times, we are experiencing not only the recycling of those old threats against our values that we hold dear as a liberal religious community, the practice of democracy, extending compassion, living out justice, gathering in community, choosing who do we love and why do we love them. We're also facing new ones. And it will seem that the values that have animated the ways in which we have found the inspiration to do social change and have lifted ourselves up to new possibilities, however flawed and unfulfilled they may have been, are no longer declarations nor commitments, but instead seems to be things opening to be in question. To whom does our compassion extend? Who do we comfort? Whose life do we choose to preserve? How do we live out justice in the world? What is the kind of justice that we owe one another? And it seems fair to us today. At what price? Will the hard work that others have done before us in the pursuit of equity to affirm how we live and who do we love, who do we call family, unravel to such an extent that we will have to redo that work again for our children, and that our children will have to continue the work again for their children and their children's children? Will peace continue to be a dream deferred? The truth that we choose to tell one another today will define how generations to come will face the world. And I hold firm to the conviction that the message of universalism, as it did yesterday, matters today. And the work that we do to tend to it as good stewards will matter to generations to come. It is for this reason that I joined Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Gordon McKinnon, when he says the following: we can take and use or abuse our heritage, but we cannot simply drop it, because it is ours irrevocably. Our heritage, Reverend McKinnon reminds us, includes an insistence upon greater breadth, an insistence upon greater understanding, an insistence upon greater generosity of spirit. It is in that spirit and in the humble acknowledgement that what we may not always be in the best stewards of our theological inheritance, that we should admit that it is ours to tend to nourish, to articulate anew and breathe new life for it, not only for us, but for those who are coming behind us, so that they can find the same inspiration, the same understanding, and not only the same understanding and the same generosity, but even a greater understanding and greater generosity when they come to our doors. Our tending to this tradition will be a gift not only for one another, but for those who will come later to pick up this work and continue it for the next generation. It is for that reason that we have to be good stewards of the message of universalism, of the life-affirming work of our tradition. Because it will not only preserve our lives, but it will save others. So the answer to any of the questions above, to whom does our compassion extend? What justice do we owe one another? Whom do we love and why? And can peace be a reality? Requires that we mobilize this inheritance and we tend to it to the best of our abilities. And I hope that you'll be of good courage in doing that work. It is life-sustaining work. It has sustained our life so far. It has sustained me and you, and it will do the same for others. We need to remember, as McKinnon reminds us, that even though it is true that universalism became by assuming that God is love and his God is love, no one will be condemned to eternal suffering. That was the beginning of universalism, but that is not the end. In the words of Universalist minister and suffragette Olympia Brown, we see how universalism found a way to live in the public. And she says that I think it's a challenge for us today that we can never make the world safe for democracy by fighting. Rather, by showing each and every one how justice is done humbly, can we create a firm basis for a democratic state. That's exactly what she said. By showing the power of justice done to each humble individual, shall we be able to create a firm basis for this state. We need that vision today. The recent revision to Article 2 of our Unitarian Universalist Association bylaws and principles entrusted us to tend to our faith. The shared values that were put to our care are interconnected and inseparable from one another. And they call us to do hard work, don't they? They call us to bear witness to the love that is the power that holds us together, and it is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living these shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. There is deep power in those words, that the separate strands of our lives can be weaved together by the power of love, and in so being together, we are called into accountable relationships with one another, with our communities, for our communities, and to be witness of those values in the world through the spiritual discipline that is love. That is powerful, I think. That is a reminder that our covenants are for one another and not to be used against one another. It is a reminder that we need to be inspired to new learnings and to grow, so that together we can uphold with good courage. What is justice for us? What does independence look for us? What is the meaning of generosity, of plurality, of equity? And how our world is transformed when we center the work of love? This is our radical task today, to ensure that we can be for and with one another and reimagine what justice looks like in public. That we can reimagine what compassion and to whom compassion extends in our lives. This requires of us new stories and new imagination. This requires of us to have the inspiration to transform our faith, to transform our lives anew. It requires of us to own the reality that we need to tell some hard truth to one another and to the world around us, but to understand that every truth that we speak is an ethical act that binds us to one another. We also need to realize what are the truths that need to be said and how to say those truths. We live in a fast-paced digital world in which acts of speaking can take many possibilities, and oftentimes just a few thumb swipes. And oftentimes some of those truths are put in places and we just walk away from the impact that such a truth may have. But if we are accountable to the truth that we say and we enter into relationship to those truths with others, we know that our freedom is chained to one another. Fannie Lou Hamer once says that my freedom is shackled and chained to yours. So if the truth will set us free, you know where I'm going with that, right? My freedom being shackled and chained to yours. And if truth will set us free, means that our truth and our freedom is bound together, that we need to move sometimes at a slower pace so that we don't trip. But sometimes we may have to pick those chains and walk a little faster for our own safety and preservation, unto the day in which we are free. Universalism is a good story to tell to the world. And for me, universalism has planted hope in my soul. It is a reminder that an invitation is always open to come, but that accepting that invitation means that I am willing to be changed and transformed and make anew. So I want to offer to you this morning the idea that we need to hold to hope. And we need to hold to hope deeply, even if it's just a quiet affirmation, even if it's just a reminder that a brighter tomorrow is possible. Because the hopes that we hold to and the stories that we tell about that hope will be like planting seeds in the grounds of people's hearts. There will be a testament of our beliefs, of the possibilities yet to come. Seeding hope is saying that I believe tomorrow is possible, even if we are filled with doubt. I love to garden, and I know that some of you maybe do as well. And we know that planting the seeds, it is at times as rewarding as the harvest is. You see, planting of the seeds requires vision, patience, care, and above all, it requires faith that the seed will sprout. It requires the faith that even if we may not see the tree grow to its full height and bear fruit, the shade that it will provide will cover someone else in the future, and the fruits that it will give will nourish the next generation. And thus we plant with hope and with faith. So I want to urge each and every one of you to embrace your own stories, both those of pain and those of joy, to embrace the story of what universalism has meant to you, the way that it has saved your life, comforts you, and bring you hope and propel you to the work that you do in the world. And plant those seeds in others' heart for your sake, for my sake, for our children, and for their children. Let's be those gardeners of good hope. In this time, these acts will not only shape our destiny, but it will also leave behind a legacy of resilience, compassion, and boundless love for the future. Our stories will be the music that can soothe all sorrows. It will be the songs that we sing when war and crime shall cease. It will be the songs that will make the hearts of many grow tender, so that we can adorn the world with peace. May it be so, and blessed be.
Thank you so much for your words, for your inspiration. We are indeed gardeners of hope. If you should doubt it, come check out the seeds you planted last week. They are sprouting up here. As we prepare to sing our way out today, I want to remind you, if you're here in person, to join us in the social hall after the service, to stop by and visit our sanctuary and resistance table, where you can learn more about the efforts of our teams and also join in with us as well. Let's sing together.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, and we know when, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah, 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 oh yeah, yeah. One more time. Oh yeah, yeah, 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 oh yeah, yeah.
So, thank you. Thank you. As we go forth today, let us hold to that hope that heavens know how we will get there, and we will. Go in peace. As we go forth today, let us hold to that hope that heavens know how we will get there, and we will. Go in peace.
Yeah, you too. Oh, actually, we can.
I'd spread my wings with such a pretty sight. How I wish I could be that brave, fearless, and true.
In like 10 minutes.
Me and wild blue. Me and wild blue. Vai minha tristeza de sair singing in my voice, diz nenhuma pressa, querer é preço, porque não posso mais sofrer. Chega de saudade, a realidade. Sem ele não há paz, não há beleza, é só tristeza e a melancolia que não sai de mim, não sai de mim, não sai. Mas se levantar, que coisa linda, que coisa louca. Pois há nem os pezinhos só nadaram no mar, do que os peixinhos quedarem na sua boca. Dentro dos meus braços, os abraços são de ser minhos de abraços, apertado assim, colado assim, calado assim, abraços sem beijinhos, sem carinho, sem ter fim. E pra acabar com esse negócio de viver longe de mim.
Mas se é voltar, se voltar, que coisa linda, que coisa longa. Pois há meus peixinhos a nadar no mar, do que os peixinhos quebrarem na sua boca. Dentro dos meus braços, os abraços são de ser milhões de abraços apertado assim, colado assim, calado assim, abraços e beijinhos de carinho sem ter fim. E pra acabar